continuing conversation we've had pre-COVID, and we've finally been able to get him to come and speak with us, and we have the venue to do it. So thank you for being here.
I appreciate it.
And on top of Jeff's mind is his vision for community recreation in the years to come.
So, yeah, I shared some prepared comments, so I'd just start with that, and if there's any questions. Good evening. The Pickaway County Family YMCA has been proud to serve our community for 54 years. I have had the pleasure of leading this branch since 2013. However, my involvement spans 28 years as a branch member and a 10-year volunteer serving on the branch community advisory board. I got to take a moment to thank one of our board, a fellow Sunrise Rotarian, and one of our board members, Gwen Wolford, who came tonight to hang out a little bit. But to say I love the YMCA and the vital role it plays in our community is an understatement. The YMCA is a leader in community health and wellness with amenities, programs, and events that have a positive impact on the lives of people of all ages and abilities here in Pickaway County. Through in-person and virtual programming, our branch served an estimated 10,000 community members in 2019. But our 42-year-old facility is showing its age. So for the past 3 years, members of our consulting board and I have been meeting with community leaders to discuss the idea of building a community-centered complex to better serve individuals and families in our community, and then converting our current YMCA into a regional child care center. Last fall, the YMCA was approached about the idea of whether a portion of the 21 acres being annexed on the Barthelmas Park might be considered as a site for such a project. We are here tonight asking council if it have interest in exploring whether such a proposal is viable. Just how such a project would be developed is part of that exploration. To that end, the YMCA of Central Ohio, which is our branch's parent organization, has recorded a success of public-private partnerships at several of its locations in the region, specifically community centers in Delaware, Reynoldburg, and Whitehall. We want to make it very clear this would not be a YMCA-only project. This would be a community project that would include the YMCA. It could also include other interested community partners working in cooperation to achieve this goal. What a community center complex would look like and what amenities it might include would be determined by the community. How other parts of the property would be developed would be determined by the community. Ultimately, those who have been part of the discussions to date see this as something that could define community and family activities well into our future and enhance our already incredible quality of life. I thank you for your time and your consideration.
Are you able to take any questions?
Sure. Did you need my address?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. What's your address?
It's 9700 US Highway 22 East, Stoutsville.
Thank you so much.
That's a long address.
And I know the mayor and council person had just met with you months ago in
Yeah.
regards to this proposal. Anyone have a comment or question for Mr. Phillips while he's here tonight? At the present time, I don't believe we've identified a use for that acreage on Kingston Pike. I think they do want to use some of it for organized sports activities. There is a wetlands there in the middle. Would you say a facility could be built on that property and yet preserve space for ball diamonds and also for the wetlands?
Yeah, in talking with the folks that have helped us to have developed our other community complexes, they estimate anywhere to have really a functioning facility with parking. And you could do it on 9 to 12 acres of that. And then if the community identifies needs for other, whether it's ball fields, soccer fields, whatever around that, there would be room with that to develop such a thing.
And I believe you would consider a community pool in this complex, right?
Yeah, that's part of what the discussions, and a lot of this I shared with a little bit. The YMCA conducted a needs assessment back in 2018. And when we started that, and it was a third party that came in for the YMCA of Central Ohio to do the needs assessment, and I just shared the last 2 pages, which is sort of an overview and then a cloud, word cloud. And I could share that entire synopsis or analysis of that with you if you'd like. But part of what the community is talking about is, yes, how this all started was a discussion after the closing of the Tedless Pool. As some of you know, the YMCA managed that for many, many years, and a lot of folks were saying, wow, we no longer have a pool in our community. So what we've been doing up until this year is we've been opening up our indoor pool to the community, just to be able to serve the community. But yeah, that's the amenities that would be included in this, whether it's an indoor pool and an outdoor pool. It really all depends what would the community want as a way to serve our families. And that's the goal of the YMCA. How do we better serve our families? How do we improve our quality of life?
Mr. Kelly?
Jeff, while we have the land, does the Y have to do a fundraising campaign to raise the funds to build such a community center?
There's a lot of different ways that these projects have been structured in the other communities. Where the YMCA has been going is the YMCA doesn't necessarily need to own the brick and mortar. What we're good at is we're good at running programming. A good example in Reynoldburg. Now, the city of Reynoldburg and all these cities, in talking with their city leaders, said they'd be more than willing to come down or have you to host people from Circleville to talk about how they did it. Reynoldburg specifically, they passed an income tax levy in their community to actually build that, and that's a 75,000 square foot facility. It's impressive. It's 2 stories. So the city of Reynoldburg owns that building, and they operate with the Y has an operating management agreement, which the Y operates the programs, it manages, it also pays the cost of operating. So there's different ways these things have been structured. Other ways that they've done it is where the city would possibly lease the land, like a long-term kind of lease to the YMCA. The YMCA then spearheads that, but we're leaning towards that this should really be a community collaborative, which is why I've spent a lot of time in the last 3 years talking with a lot of different organizations and have had interest from those number of organizations saying, if we can do this, we want to be a part of it. Because I think that's the way it works, because you have to have that dynamic. And you also have a way of paying for it as well. When, you can build it, well, how do you continue to pay for the thing?
Thank you. Mrs. Tice?
I was just curious, if you put a new pool in, would that, it could be indoor or outdoor, or?
You could have, the community may say, hey, we want an indoor pool and an outdoor pool.
What would happen to the existing pool at the YM?
Which is the biggest question we get. So the idea that we have, and we have several groups that we've been talking to, and we're actually testing the idea of can that facility, that building, become a regional child care center? And so then in conversations with PICA, with the schools, this year because of COVID, we are actually hosting Circleville City Schools preschool. So they have taken over that space, so it's a way of, because of the location of that building to Circleville City Schools property, their interest is, wow, it's right there. And the idea with the pool that's in our building would be to fill that in, and you could create either, as John mentioned, there's a demand for gym space. Could that become gym space? Could it become something else? I've heard of talk about children's museum. So could that space also maybe include a children's museum? But the idea is that there would be life in that building after the walk. It just happens that pool right now, that's in the oldest section of our building, which is 42 years old. So.
Two quick things, Jeff, thanks for coming. I know that we had talked about this previously when we had met, but can you share a little bit about why Barthelmas in terms of the location? Because I know that was something that we kind of talked about, where it's located. And then secondly, and I know it's still in the preliminary stages, but with the attitude of it being a collaborative effort from the community, what other groups or are there other groups that you can share that you know that are interested in being a part of it?
Well, I hate to, without them stepping up and saying, but, so again, the initial conversations actually started with Jonathan Davis, Andy Vinegar, and myself. and initially had identified, because PICA has around 12 acres of extra land on the south side of their building. We talked about that, and I hope he doesn't yell at me, but it was actually last year, Terry came to me and said, Jeff, have you thought about Barthelmas? And I know Barthelmas is the primary family park for family activities and that kind of thing, and I knew the city was looking at that land, so we actually jumped in his Jeep, and we drove all around the land, and it just, to me, the location, you're on Kingston Pike, it's very accessible, you already have the family activities, and just think if you had something of this complex that's sort of the centerpiece for this thing, of family activities, how cool could that be? And you could also then, augment what Barthelmas already has. So I think the location works out. It also, one of the things we were looking at and talking about this is how could we better serve the south end? The YMCA was fortunate that the Penn family basically willed that property to the Y way back when Harold Hewitt was working with a bunch of folks to create the YMCA. But where we have heard the need is in the community is in the south end. How can kids and families get to something, which was originally why when we were talking to PICA, that's where the location made sense as well. But Barthelmas came up, and it just seems like it would be a great location if indeed the community would like to have it.
Jeff, looking at what, as far as the future, dollar-wise, what are you thinking size-wise of a building ideally for Circleville and Pickwick County?
So the Reynoldburg, which just opened actually in February, just before COVID hit, that, again, I shared with you, is a 75,000 square foot, two-story building. That project was $30 million. It includes an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, but it's also is built in partnership not only with the city of Reynoldburg. Ohio Health has a 4,000 square foot doctor's offices and clinic. So having a medical relationship, having some kind of healthcare component makes a lot of sense in creating something like this to better serve the needs of the community. The YMCA of Central Ohio currently has a relationship with Ohio Health in a lot of our buildings.
How much are we thinking about as far as square foot?
So our current building is 55,000 square feet,
Okay.
which it doesn't look like when you walk in. It was put together and, just, hey, we have a need. They kept plopping different parts of that building together. And it really, we don't house all of our programming. As some of you know, our very incredible creative arts program currently operates out of Memorial Hall. Well, that program is 140 to 150 kids every year. It's amazing. But really with the size of Circleville, our folks, the Y folks that do these kind of things, something in the range of 45,000 to 50,000 maybe. And you're probably looking at, if you did one pool, the range I've heard is it could be anywhere between 16 and 23 million based on how many pools and that kind of thing you would want to do.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to travel with you up to Delaware. Can you talk about the Delaware?
So
YMCA?
that building, which is, you saw that facility, that is the Delaware County Community Center YMCA. It is 150,000 square feet, and their partner is the National Guard. The National Guard, I think, takes up I think they take 40,000 of that space. But what's unique with that relationship is the city of Delaware owns it. They have an operating agreement with the YMCA. But one of the things the YMCA provides that I think for a city purpose was the YMCA also manages all the parks and recreation programs for the city of Delaware. So that's part of that arrangement they have with them.
Can you talk about their pool
Oh my
area?
God. Okay. I call it Disneyland. I mean, they have what you would call a normal looking pool area, but then you have all the, what they call the spouts and slides and everything in their indoor pool, and then they also have an outdoor pool at that one as well.
And they have large doors that kind of go up to where you can go from the inside.
Yeah, they can hold it, pre-COVID, they could hold events that would transcend both the indoor pool and the outdoor pool. And that's something that we were thinking about, because originally these discussions started with what can we do for a pool? And the idea was you could put, you know, an outdoor pool in the ground, have it open 3 months out of the year, or could you do something where it becomes more of a year-round kind of thing? And when in the discussions was like, you know, we would have space at our, you know, we're on 5 acres at the Y, but the kind of outdoor pool they talked about was sort of in like a barn kind of overhang that did have the large doors that would raise up to give you that outdoor feel. And then in the winter, you could at least, that it could be used year-round, because it just makes more sense to have that kind of amenity you could use.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor?
Jeff, thank you for coming, thank you for your passion. I like, a couple minutes ago when you mentioned that Delaware County YMCA, and right now we are Pickaway County YMCA. Do you envision this new project to be a county project or a city project?
Well, it just depends on which entities are involved. I mean, we are a YMCA that serves all of Pickaway County.
Have you talked with the county commissioners or any township trustees about this project?
We have had conversations with a couple of the county commissioners about what this could be, what role could possibly the county play in it. Again, with Barthelmas being in city property, it just made sense to talk here.
Well, we're talking a big investment, we're talking a big fundraiser. I would think that if we're going to make this project work, and I really think that we need to make this project work, that we would need the assistance of the county also.
And we already have, again, we have a great relationship that we rent our space for the Creative Arts Center from the county. They've been a fantastic partner to work with. During this whole COVID thing, they've worked with us. I'm happy to announce that we're actually starting that programming October 5th, because everything was just sort of put on hold. So we're trying to bring some, you know, I know there's a pent-up demand. Kids want to do something, and as long as we can do it safely, we want to do that. But we have a great relationship with the county.
Good, thank you.
Anyone else?
What's your vision for kind of moving forward and how we make this vision a reality?
I think it would be a matter of, if the council's interested, just that we get together and just start talking. What did this thing look like? Like, if we did a needs assessment a couple years ago, and again, if there's interest in receiving the overall summary, I can share that as well. But really, the next assessment would be, what could this community do? You know, what could this thing look like? Possibly, what are different options of how we can make this a reality? It'd be a matter of just starting discussions and really trying to see, what does our community want? What does our community, you know, they said they wanted something in the needs assessment a couple years ago. They said there's a pent-up demand for something for families to do. Okay, how do we make that a reality? So I think just starting discussions. This is just something that has been talked about amongst, you know, some leaders that I've been talking with in the community. And there seems to be a lot of folks saying, wow, this would be great to set up our community for the future. I always say I give Harold Hewitt so much credit. That group back in 1966 decided that this community could support a YMCA. And again, to have an entity like that in a community this size, as most of you know, I'm not from here, but I've lived here for almost 30 years, and I was a Y kid my whole life. And to have this kind of amenity is pretty amazing, I think.
Thank you very much for coming.